Welcome, book nerds. We're back. Today, I want to talk about my reread of Way of Kings. I am rereading this book. Clearly, it's loved. I mean, this book has been through a lot with me. But I am rereading the entire Stormlight Archive, trying to get through it by the end of September. Probably not going to happen. But I wanted to do a video today of my thoughts of my reread. So this book really revolves around Kaladin Stormblessed. Kaladin is one of the main characters in this book, and every book so far has revolved mostly around one character, and Way of Kings is certainly Kaladin's. I would say the next book, Words of Radiance, is Shallan's, and Oathbringer is Dalinar's. Way of Kings, Kaladin's book. He has a complete arc in this book. We are introduced to him when he's a leader of his squad, and he's this charismatic person that everyone wants to get behind. And suddenly, he's a slave. Just right off the bat, we get several flashbacks of why he's a slave, several flashbacks of him as a child. You find out why he's Stormblessed. But one of the great things of the way he is written is that you go through almost half the book, probably about like that, half the book before he even realizes what his power is or that he has power. And Brandon does these great little sprinklings of hints throughout the book, and you get kind of these hints of all the gems, the soul gems are empty, right? Like everywhere he goes, they're always empty. So you get hints that he draws on Stormlight, but you don't really understand, and he doesn't understand. And even in the high storm, you don't quite get it. And Brandon is great that way. He's so good of just sprinkling those little tidbits out to you that you don't really get until you reread it. Though it dives into the other characters in the book, Dalinar, Shallan, and Adolin, and Yasna, it's really Kaladin's book. Now, in the prologue, we are introduced to the world, we're introduced to the magic system, and we are introduced to Szeth, the white assassin. And you just see that Szeth can call his shard blade and do all these great things, and you really dive into the magic system of the book. Now, it's not really the main characters of the book that I think are really the heroes or the people that you really want to get behind. In my opinion, it's the men of Bridge 4. It's the men that Kaladin brings into his protective hug. If Brock and Teft, those characters are really the fun characters to read. They're so great. And watching the camaraderie of Kaladin and his Bridge 4 men, of bringing them up, because these were broken men. These were men that thought they were worth nothing. They were slaves. They were just supposed to die. That's what they were supposed to do. They're supposed to run their bridge and die. Before Kaladin showed up, Bridge 4 had the highest loss of any bridge ever. And then he had the least amount of casualties. He made sure those men did not die. He kept them alive, and he brought their spirits up. He fixed them. Now, we know Kaladin's a slave, and there are so many foreshadowing moments, little flashback moments of why he was a slave. You don't know why he was a slave. And when you find out why he was a slave, because he was such a good person that he was punished for it. And he mentions that. He mentions that his good decisions are his punishment, right? And so you don't really understand why. And this reason really adds to Kaladin's character. It just adds to how honorable and how much of a good person that he is. Now, Shallan. Even though I really love her as a character, in The Way of Kings, her arc it doesn't speak to me as well as Kaladin's does. And there's probably a reason for that. I mean, she comes to the land to apprentice with Yasna, and her main goal is to steal her soulcaster, and then she basically comes around and decides not to do it, and realizes how amazing Yasuna is and that she can soulcast without a soulcaster and do all these things, and her story really starts to develop. But it's just not as strong as it's going to be. But it's like the starts of her story. Brennan does foreshadowing so much in this book, and little sprinkles of evidence, and you you get it when you first read it, but when you do your reread, you see of all the plans that he had. He's such an outline writer, so detailed that he knows every aspect that he's going to do for this book, and he puts these little hints here, little hints there. Now, Syl, she is fantastic. She's great. She really adds lightness to Kaladin's darkness, because Kaladin is a depressed person. He's a Croesus slave, and he's down in the dumps all the time, and Syl is there to bring him back up. She really cares for him. She keeps him alive, and Kaladin keeps the Bridge 4 crew alive. She brings him up so Kaladin can bring them up. Okay, Dalinar. Dalinar, one of the most important characters in all of Stormlight Archive. He's fantastic. He's an older leader who has this like shadowy backstory, and not a great backstory. Dalinar is not really the great man that you think he is. He is now. He's awesome, but he wasn't always like that. And you don't get that here. You just get hints of what he was like as a warrior, this great slaughterer, and a guy who loved war. But then he read The Way of Kings, and everything changed for him, and he was becoming a good man. End of this book really ends with Kaladin like just doing the right thing to protect Dalinar. He was going to sacrifice everything that he's built for Dalinar. Yes, he could take his men and run. The battle's going, no one's looking, but he needs to go and save Dalinar. And that's what he does. He takes his Bridge 4 crew and he charges in there and he saves him. And it is one of my favorite scenes. I love that scene. Okay, thoughts. Reread. Do I love the book? Of course I love the book. This is one of my favorite books of all time. I love this book. This book is so fun to read. I love these characters. I want to be buried with this book. That's my thoughts. Read fantasy.